When I'm asked to do a commission of this importance, I need to find some hook to hang it on, because obviously Gandhi lived to the age of 79, and one could choose to do him as a young man, as an old man, or somewhere in between. But it's nice if you've got this sort of reason for doing him at a particular age. Fortunately for me, he came to London in 1931 and visited Ramsay MacDonald at 10 Downing Street. And so that was the hook that I was looking for, because going into Parliament Square, what is more appropriate than to link it with that particular visit? He was 62 at the time, which is a very good age to portray someone, because it's, you know, they have achieved a lot at that age, and they go on to achieve more afterwards. And it's a kindly age to do people at, because they're not yet showing the ravages of age. So that was a very happy coincidence. He was also, because it was November that he visited London, he was wearing quite a heavy shawl, and he was well wrapped up. And I thought that that was actually more appropriate to Parliament Square in the sort of northern climes that we live in than the sort of lightweight cotton thing that he would have worn most of the time in India. Now, to start with this sort of sculpture, it's a little bit like writing a book. You have to do all the reference before you start. And of course I had a fairly good idea what he looked like, but actually that isn't sufficient if you're going to do a sculpture where the head is that size. And so I tried to assemble as many photographs as I could. Lord Desai was very helpful in providing books. The High Commissioner was extremely helpful in providing other bits of reference. And what I found was actually the photographs were really rather poor, because photography has moved on such a pace since, well, he died in 1948, so all the photographs were prior to that. Nowadays we're used to very high quality photographs where you can see minute detail. You couldn't in those days, and photographers on the whole were much more reverential. They took photographs from further away, so it was quite a struggle to actually sort of see exactly what he looked like, see what his bone structure was, and all that sort of thing. The High Commissioner was extremely kind in arranging for me to meet his grandson, Gopal Gandhi. And I had a very good interview with him, and I talked to him about his grandfather. He has the eyes of Gandhi, which I was quite interested in, and often when you can't actually meet the person you're portraying, looking at the relatives is actually very useful, because sometimes you see things, you see the way that the head grows out of the neck, or the way the ears come out of the head, that sort of thing. And that's all very useful, because photographers on the whole photograph people from the front. Occasionally someone photographs someone from the side. People never photograph people from the back. So it's always difficult to get that sort of reference. Film is helpful because sometimes people turn their back on the camera and you see a glimpse of what they look like from back. So that's the sort of struggle that one has doing a figure like Gandhi, because he died 66 years ago, and of course the number of people that are alive now that actually met him and you know one could talk to about him are fairly few and far between. The sculpture now is completed in clay. It's 9 foot high, and it's standing, I think, in my studio at the moment. I say I think because we've gone into the technical processes and moulds are being made, and the moulds we should be on schedule. I wasn't in the studio yesterday. Should be pulled off the clay, and the moulds go to the foundry. Just as a brief explanation as to what will happen from now on, the moulds will go to the foundry. They will paint wax into them, and those waxes will be taken out and I will check them over. Those will be in sections. They will then make ceramic moulds. The ceramic moulds will go into an oven and be heated up. The wax will melt out, and into the void that's left, the bronze will be poured. That's the lost wax process. So that's how it's going to be cast. Excuse me. Thank you so much. All those pieces, when they're cast, will then be joined together and will be welded together, fettled and finished, and it'll then be ready to go to site. I was looking at a book the other day at the works of Donatello, He was operating in Florence around 1430, and he was commissioned to do a sculpture of David by Cosimo Medici. His way of producing a sculpture is exactly the same as the way I produce a sculpture. He would have produced a wax, shown it to Cosimo Medici. He would then have built a steel armature or metal armature on a turntable which he could turn round, and he would then model the thing in clay. Donatello could come to my studio and would recognize everything that I do in that studio. He would recognize exactly the tools that I use, made of boxwood or wire. He could go to the foundry. He would be puzzled by gas furnaces. He would be puzzled by electric cranes. But everything else is exactly the same. The skill that's required to cast a bronze sculpture is exactly the same as it was in his day. And that's the one thing that I like about sculpture. Well, one of the many things I like about sculpture is this long tradition of doing things. There's no shortcut to it. There's no computers that help you a great deal. There is one thing. I use a laser to make sure the sculpture is upright. But that's about the only thing. Everything else is as it was. And in Donatello's day, it wasn't new either. He would look back to Roman and Greek times, where they did bronze casting in exactly the same way. So it is a long tradition. I've tried to put into this sculpture, you can't put everything into a sculpture, what I think about Gandhi. I see him as a thoughtful man, as a thinker, as a kindly man, as a compassionate man, and having spoken to his grandson, a very determined man. So those are the sort of things that I've tried to get in. He's clasping his hands together. He doesn't have his traditional stick because he's going to see the Prime Minister. So that's really how the image came about. And he is in a wonderful site. As Lord Desai says, it's the last sculpture to go into Parliament Square. In a way, he's almost got the best situation there because he looks directly at the Palace of Westminster. Behind him, and I'm sure this would please him, are the Supreme Courts. And at night, when all the tourists have gone, and the Palace of Westminster is quiet, he has, to his left-hand side, Jan Smuts to talk to. On his right, Nelson Mandela. Behind him, Abraham Lincoln. And in front of him, Winston Churchill. What could be better than that? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I think basically, let's put it this way. We are collecting small donations on the website, and that's what will be coming on. We have got pledges. Deepak here is one of our donors. You know, we have to get it done by 30th of January. So we will get it. I would say nothing about how much has been gathered. It'll be enough. I think one should not make any future plans. There's something called randomness. You know, the best laid plans of mice and men, etc. You know, what Robert Burns said. Sometime in 2015, it will be done. Exactly when, I don't know. The 2015 is the centenary of Gandhi's return to India. And he returned to India via London. From South Africa to London, London to India. So 2015 is a good year. Had I been more competent, perhaps, you know. No, it'll happen. It'll happen. I'm completely sanguine about this. And, you know, we only started the website in September 20th. Okay, because I discovered to my great, I've learned a lot, that it takes 4 weeks to get a charity registered, which happens to be the fastest anybody has registered a charity in this country. Then it takes another 4 weeks to open a bank account. And then you have to set up a website.
So actually it's only been a month. It's really only
we've been only collecting for a month. It'll come. You know, I'm not worried. I'm not going on hunger strike, first of all. I never ever use the word hunger strike. When I was talking to Aditi that evening, I did not use the word hunger strike. I'm against hunger strike. Hunger strike is a coercive method. All I was saying, all I was saying was that I will go on a 24-hour fast to raise awareness of this project.
Was it to raise awareness or to raise funds?
Well, first to raise awareness and then point out that this is going on. I mean, if funds come, I'm not going to throw them away.
No, I think it was more for the people at large that Meghnad also wanted to spread the word, so that we get more people involved.
Let me tell you, it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
More people have talked about hunger strike than have talked about the Gandhi statue, right? And if for everybody who asked me about the hunger strike, they'd give me £100, the statue would be on its way. No, I haven't even decided what date I was going to go on fast for, because I have to actually ask my GP, because I'm a diabetic. I have to take medical advice before I go on even a 24-hour fast. So I'm going to do it. I don't want to be the news. I want Gandhi to be the news. So the whole idea is so I'm going to see the GP soon, and I'm going to ask whether this is feasible or not. We had to set up the trust in a hurry, right? And it requires 2 UK residents to set up a trust, right? So it happens to be that we were there and we set up the trust. Then, having filed the trust deed, as I said, it took me 4 weeks to get the charity registered. See, even only now, after planning permission has been given, can we breathe and say, okay. And now we are welcoming trustees, and trustees will come. I mean, it's a. This is a public trust. This is not a family trust. It's registered as a charity by the Charity Commission. So, I mean, and our lives have been open, transparently open.
And actually, I don't think that's quite correct that anybody's been put up, because we've been getting so many people coming on coming to us and saying that please, they would love to be part of it, and we've been going to meeting people, and we've got an overall, I have to say, a really enthusiastic response.
There's a process by which more trustees will be added. The existing trustees have to have a resolution at a properly convened meeting, and then do due diligence on the trustees and submit their names to the charity. It'll all be done.
It's all happening.
It'll all happen.
I think if I could just say that I've been involved in a number of public sculptures where funds have had to be collected, and it goes through a sort of a predictable cycle, I have to say. That is that funds come in comparatively slowly to begin with. But what makes the big difference is when there's actually an image. And when there's an image, then funds start rolling in,
right.
and
Absolutely.
they come in increasingly large quantities. And you find actually the problem is that there's an overrun.
Yeah.
And this happens every time that the people that start these things get very worried at the beginning. And it's often because they start too early. They start before there's even a maquette. And so what they're saying is, we are going to produce a sculpture of this. And people don't give money to something that may happen or may not happen. When you've got an image, when you've gone this far down the line, funds will come in. Particularly with someone like Gandhi, it's not a problem.
Actually, 2 weeks ago, we saw the sculpture in Philip's studio. Within 4 days following, we got a planning permission. So we are on a roll for about 14 days now, and more long it will continue. We walked into this big room, and we saw this image, and we were just completely taken aback. I have to say, it was just a very almost epiphenomenal moment, because we had seen the maquette. Philip had come to the meeting of the advisory committee and shown us the maquette, and we discussed the maquette. And then, of course, as you said, Gopal Gandhi had made some suggestions, and we had kind of. But walking in there and seeing this was just an amazing feeling of seeing a 9-foot tall clay statue And I think it is just a man. And that certainly makes it much more real. Lord Dholakia was there, the High Commissioner Ranjan Mathai was there, and some members of the advisory committee. And we were just absolutely thrilled to see this statue. And it's very nice of Philip to invite us to see it. But it is going to be. I haven't seen all the statues of Gandhi, but of the many I've seen, this is the best.